Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics, Lincoln Day Weekend Edition. Glad to have everybody watching down in Springfield. We are joined by somebody that is tasked with making those folks at Lincoln Day's life a little tougher. The Assistant Floor Leader in the House, Representative Gina Minton. Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you, Scott. Glad to be here.
I was thrilled to have you on because there's a different feel in your caucus now. It's not that it's what you wanted, but when you're in the minority in the House and you have the governor of your party, it's a little tougher to be the true opposition because you have to own some of the things he does. I've seen that really change, and it feels like you have a great freshman class, and there's a little bit of a different karma and feel about your caucus.
Yeah, we have an awesome freshman class, actually. I'm very excited and thrilled to have those guys there. And you're absolutely right. Different governor, different game, and we'll see how it plays out over the session.
Let's talk about one issue real quick. I don't know what the governor's position is. It's Real ID. It was debated in the Senate. You guys talked about it in the House a little bit. So this seems like the compromise is a Real ID. The government wants a bunch more of your stuff. I personally don't even want the government to know my name. I don't even want them to know I exist. Actually, I'm going to come with a fake name. But to get on airplanes and do a few other things, get in federal buildings, you have to have what they say is a Real ID. Senators still become with the idea to give you the option. What do you think?
Well, first of all, let's understand what Real ID is. Real ID is a federal law signed by George W. Bush in response to the 9/11 Commission recommendations. So it's not that this sort of just came out of thin air as a way to get more information from Missourians. Unfortunately, Missouri, I think it was 2008, 2009, maybe earlier, passed a law saying we're not going to comply with it. That decision has now come back to haunt us to the extent that we're not able to get on planes.
Missourians don't trust the government.
Missourians do not trust the government, but we're now one of 5 states that has not passed Real ID. And here's my argument. Obviously, we need Real ID. I don't understand why we need to have 2 separate tracks, one that's sort of with Real ID, one that's not with Real ID. I think that's going to ultimately create confusion. But obviously, at the end of the day, I think that it's important that we have the ability for Missourians to get on airplanes. You know, come on, Missourians need to be able to get on military bases as well, and that's already a problem. So we need to do something. I'm not so sure that I completely wholeheartedly support the way that it's being done. And at the end of the day, I understand you don't want the government to know your name, but they already do. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, well, for now anyway. Let's talk about another issue that you have a different skill set on because you are an attorney, and that's tort reform. Republicans have talked about these tort reform ideas for a very long time. One of your colleagues in the bar, Jay Nixon, was governor. It didn't go anywhere. Let's talk about a couple of things they're doing. Collateral source. Where do you see that moving? And do you have an argument to slow that down?
Well, look, collateral source has, I think it's passed the House, and the Senate version is working its way through. The problem with collateral source is this. It basically punishes folks that do the right thing. So all Missourians that pay their premiums or get their premiums paid as part of their job for their health insurance ends up becoming a benefit to other insurance companies and a detriment to that person if they're injured or have some sort of a lawsuit, arising out of that. And that's really the big problem with collateral source. It doesn't help a single working Missourian. It doesn't help folks that have to go, that do the right thing and keep their health insurance in line. They pay their premiums. They pay their deductibles. Nobody likes to pay that. I don't like to. I assume you don't either. But the bottom line is that insurance companies should not be getting the benefit of the hard work that we put in to maintain that health insurance.
Let's talk about expert witness. Now, that's a bill that's got some, I think the opposition is a little different on that because it even talks about some of the farm groups are like, wait a minute, we want to be able to talk about our own land.
Exactly. And look, in the House version, we did make some amendments so that it only applies to cases that have jury trials. But you're absolutely right. The bottom line is that it's funny, we talk about, folks on your side, well, not your side, but folks talk about how they don't like the federal government intrusion. And
that'd be my side.
Exactly, I think so too. The bottom line is, I say, well, we don't like the federal government except for when we do. And expert witness is an excellent example of that. All that this bill does is it tries to adopt the federal standards for Missouri lawsuits. So since when is that a good idea for the folks on the other side of the aisle?
Never. Unless the government gets rid of the designated hitter, which I would fully support. Let me ask you a question.
You know what, you might be right about that.
We hear this is all in pursuit. I mean, there's 2 types of Republicans, one that talk about punishing attorneys and one that talk about growing the economy. Let's speak to the economy argument. There's a lot of intelligent people that say these site locators, these job creators, they knock you off the list if you're not right to work, if you have some of these tort issues. Do you not believe there's some validity to those claims?
Look, I don't think Missouri's economic growth is not in jeopardy, certainly not compared to its surrounding states. So here's a good example of tort reform. Minnesota. They don't have any tort reform, and they're doing fine economically. There are other there's no, I would say there's no solid evidence that would sort of make that argument true one way or another, which is also interesting because the arguments that are being used in favor of the expert witness bill are unscientific, basically surveys that would never be allowed in a courtroom under the current law, let alone under the proposed law.
Let's talk about something else in the legislature is called ethics. It's become, there was a couple issues with personal behavior that somehow became issues about ethics that I've not seen anybody do any laws that affect those instances, but I've seen a ton of ethics proposals. The governor enacted an ethics proposal, called on the legislature to do the same. Your caucus actually said, okay, Governor, you've come in, you've been elected saying you're very, very, very ethical. Let's do it. And I've noticed the Republicans in the House did not take up their governor or your suggestion.
Republicans are kind of not so fast on that. So, again, I certainly support all of the bills that we've proposed. There was a hearing. I don't think that that's been voted out of committee yet. It certainly hasn't been put on a calendar. And look, if Republicans support their governor, I don't understand why they don't support their governor in this respect as well. However, I also have some issues with, who's paying for the governor's private plane? The governor's talking about the fact that he doesn't want lobbyist gifts, but by the same token, there's every reason to believe that he might be accepting private gifts that are not coming through the normal transparent system. So I personally have issue with that, although I support the governor's proposals as to the legislators and the General Assembly. But what's going on there?
One hillbilly friend of mine back in West Butler County had an idea. Just start your own 501c something like the inauguration. Give everybody a debit card. It's not a lobbyist gift, and the ethical classes said that's ethical.
I think that's absolutely problematic. I think that if the governor's going to run on transparency, then the governor needs to actually be transparent, and that applies to everything. It applies to who's paying for those planes, who's paying for the inauguration. It also applies to answering questions. I call it transparency-free GOP because that's exactly what's going on. We're talking about transparency, but not actually providing
I'll defend Parker Bryden a little bit. I think maybe there's some adjustment there, and I think the smartest people I know make adjustments, and maybe they are too. Last question before you go: the cemetery that was desecrated here in St. Louis. I think the governor had a very good week. That was some real leadership. I thought that was the visuals coming out of that. Sometimes the visuals seem a little contrived. That seemed like a real heartfelt thing he cared about.
I absolutely agree that the governor did care about that. I was there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get in on time because of the unexpected arrival of the vice president. So the bottom line is
kudos to the governor on that, though. I think he deserves credit for that.
There were hundreds of people that were there that helped clean up the cemetery, and that was a good thing.
Yep. Representative, we hope you'll come back throughout this very interesting session and tell us what's going on this week in Missouri politics.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel, surrogates for all the candidates for mayor. But first, we'll have this week's leading Missouri economic indicators.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we're committed to providing cleaner energy
for generations to come.
Our new state-of-the-art solar energy center is a great example of that commitment. It's part of our long-range plan to deliver more than 30% of our power from cleaner resources.
Making sure your energy future is not just brighter,
but cleaner too. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Lyda Cruson has a comprehensive plan to make St. Louis a safer place for our families. More police, better trained, better paid, and more diverse than ever. As mayor, Lyda will make record investments in prevention and after-school programs. She'll clean up vacant lots, fight for alternatives to incarceration for non-violent offenses, and for new gun safety laws. Endorsed by police and community leaders, Lyda Cruson for mayor.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. You've seen mayoral forums. We wanted to bring you the folks that are actually running these campaigns and are a big part of it. Talk about the strategy and some of the things that folks that are into Missouri politics might enjoy. And we're very glad today to be joined with the Lewis Reed campaign by Keith Willis. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Friend of the show, with Public Eye, and the Tashara Jones campaign. Ann Schweitzer, welcome back.
Thank you.
Megan Shackelford with the Kelly Group and with the Lyda Cruson campaign. We had to do a whole show to get you to come back on. Thanks for finally gracing us back with your presence.
I'm
good
happy
to see you
to
again.
be here.
And Ryan Hawk, it's very good to have you on, sir, with the Antonio French campaign. Let's give me the short thing real quick to make sure, because I think it's interesting how the whole state looks at St. Louis. It is a city that matters to everybody in the state. Why is your candidate the best candidate?
I think when you talk about St. Louis, you talk about the #1 issue in the city. It's crime and violent crime. And I think that the Post-Dispatch, I'll use their words. They said our crime plan is the most detailed. And I believe that our candidate and our campaign is the one person that can reduce violence in this city. And he's taken a pledge that said, if I don't do it, I won't run again. So I think that that's why it's crime.
Megan?
I think for our campaign, we have someone who has a proven record of 19 years of actually getting things done, working with others, and really going through the finish line on projects, which I think is going to be huge for the city. We can all talk about a lot of things, and that's great, and have big ideas. But if you don't know how to be a consensus builder and get things done, what's the point?
Why is Tashara Jones the best candidate to be the mayor?
Thanks. Tashara has very diverse leadership experience. She's been a state rep, she's been a committee woman, and now she's the current treasurer. As treasurer, she modernized the parking in St. Louis so we can pay by credit card and by phone app, and took an office that did a lot of things poorly and turned it around to be an office that did a lot of things well, including college kid savings program. So she's shown that she can be innovative and that she can make a lot of changes in a short time, which is what the city needs.
Why is your candidate the best candidate?
Well, I think that he's got 18 years experience. He's got 10 years on the legislative side. He's the only candidate in the race that's on the powerful E&A committee. He's the only one that's taken a neighborhood and done $1.6 billion worth of development. He's the only one that's been there in the community. He has the experience of leadership. He's passed several bills and legislation, and he's been there in the community. And he will represent, not only is he a South Side, he's the only South Side Democrat that's running, but he understands it can relate to the Central Quarter as well as to the North Side. So I think you're going to get a candidate. I heard Andy talk about diversity, one who's lived it and walked it. We all know that he is in a biracial marriage, and he's raised 4 biracial children. His office, 50% of our staff, half white, half black, 40% of our staff on the campaign side. So we have the LGBTQIA community represented. We have whites, blacks, young, old, millennials. So I think he's going to be the only one that's going to come and be the true consensus builder when it comes to bringing everyone.
Our polling shows that, and I think history shows that a lot of St. Louisans, white voters, tend to vote for a white candidate. African American voters tend to want to vote for an African American candidate. That divide, is that as real on the ground as it seems like in the numbers and in history?
I don't think so. I think you're seeing, as I said, he's from the 6th Ward, one of the most diverse wards in the city. And so he's been elected not once, not twice, but 3 times as the board president for the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. So I throw that all out. When they say, oh, there's too many blacks, they're going to split up the black vote. If you've got 2 candidates, the votes are going to get split. Let's just throw that out. There's not anyone that wants to run should be able to run. Let's throw that out. And, you know, I hear that and we hear, oh, the blacks are going to split up the vote. No, if there's 20 people that want to run, this is America, the greatest country in the world.
Right,
and they should all
it's not
run.
so much should they run, but I think our polling and other polling shows, and I think history shows in the city of St. Louis, there's a historical trend for folks wanting to vote for people of their race.
Right, and I'm going to go back to the issue of crime and say that at this point in our city's history and at what's going on in our city right now, I don't think whether you live south, north, whether you are white, whether you are black or whatever, you are looking at it and saying, how do we reduce crime? And I think that that is going to trump the status quo of what it has been for the last previous elections, where I vote for somebody that looks like me, or I vote for somebody who lives by me. I don't think that you throw all of that out the window this time. I mean, when you look at the number of homicides in the city, when you look at the number of violent crime, that the statistics, whether it's real statistics or just the way you feel about it when you go into the city, I think that crime and reducing that is going to trump everything else.
Megan, that you'd be the candidate this demographic shift may help. It sure looks like to me, and sure looks like from the numbers we've seen as of right now, everybody has a right to run, but it looks like the race may be breaking down on some racial lines.
Well, I disagree with that. We've been campaigning since June, and we've gone to every ward in this city across all demographics, race, sex, anything. Neighborhood safety is #1. So if you have a message that feeds that and what people want to hear on how to reduce crime, you are going to find that they're going to lean your way. And I think you can see that in our campaign. And we've had consistently great response from voters on the doors, no matter where we are, no matter who they are.
A lot of our viewers will be familiar with Tashara just her time in the legislature. It looked to me like if they're of a candidate that might have a crossover appeal to different parts of the city, she would be a very good contender for that mantle. Is that what you're seeing on the ground?
Definitely. We got the 15th ward endorsement. We're got 25th ward endorsement. We're getting endorsements south and north. And I agree with what's been said. St. Louis isn't monolithic. All of us have voters who are both black and white. And we have seen in recent history, in the elections of Vernon Betts and Kim Gardner, elections that had a majority black candidates are seeing that a black candidate wins. So I think people are choosing based on the person that they want to win and who they think will serve them best, not based on skin color.
Okay, let me ask you this: what does that electorate need to look like for you to win? I know that let's get into the politics of it. Just straight up, our viewers like politics; they wouldn't be watching. What does your electorate that wins look like?
We are really focusing on a turnout campaign. If we get a lot of voters out the door, we will win this race. We have spoken to tens of thousands of people, and we are seeing a lot of support all over the place, and now our job is just to get out that vote.
What is your electorate? Where do you win this race at? Where do you run up the highest margins, and where do you have to minimize your losses in the city?
Well, I think that we're going to win this election in those wards that are supporting us. The 23rd ward, what happens to be the mayor's ward. We've got that endorsement. The firefighters. We've got the 6th ward. We've got the diverse wards that are supporting us. And we know that we've got to get our base. The last election, the mayor had about 24,000 votes. We had about 19,000. So we're figuring that it's going to take about 12 to 15,000. 80% of the people are going to be voting for someone else. We realize that. So with 12, 14,000 people in the race, right? So the reality is I think that we're going to get those people that want to change, that know his record, that knows that in the last election, Lewis Reed was the only one that stood up. All these other candidates are Johnny-come-latelys. They come on now. They all want to run now that the mayor is dropping out, that the mayor is not running. So we're saying we've been there.
So you win it in the 23rd, a few other diversions. Where do you win this race at?
Well, we have been very lucky also to get a lot of ward endorsements, and of course we've gotten the 16th, the 8th, and the 28th ward, which are historically the 3 highest turnout wards in the city. So that's obviously a great thing, but more importantly, we just have to get more people to vote in this city. The presidential election, around 160,000 people voted. We will be lucky if 50,000 people vote in this March election. That's our focus. We've been talking to tens of thousands of voters, and we want all of them to vote, regardless.
Is there an advantage in the Central West End, being your candidate from the Central West End?
You know, I think that the great thing about being from the Central West End is there is so much diversity.
Does she win it?
Oh, I would hope so, absolutely.
Where do you win this race at?
You know, I look at this, and I've heard everybody talk about it, and this is a show about politics, that, oh, we have this endorsement of this ward and this endorsement of that ward, and, you know, we've had this and that, and you know, I look at that and I throw it all out the window because it's all status quo politics. If we would have looked at polling and turnout models, we would have had a President Clinton, right? I think that this becomes, you know, how does Antonio not just cross over with undecided voters? I mean, even in your poll, Scott, you still had, what, 25% of the voters are undecided?
Little south of it, yeah.
I think, you know, again, we're talking politics. I think that support
How
for
big
every
is that
candidate.
Post-Dispatch endorsement for you guys?
It was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge. It validates everything that Antonio's been saying.
If you win this race, will that Post-Dispatch endorsement be a big part of it?
I think that the Post-Dispatch, look, we were proud of it. We sought it. We didn't shy away from it. We didn't walk away from it. We looked at our hometown paper and said, you know, this is something that we want to show them our plan. We want to show them our vision of what we're doing. And when they came back and said, you know, we appreciate it. We validate what you're saying. It is the energy for the campaign. It is the plan to reduce violence. And not only that, but he said, look, I'll set up a report card system with you.
But
You
Scott,
grade
the
me on it.
Post-Dispatch, come on, let's just face it. That was a vote for Lyda. And at the end of the day, they haven't been right, I think, since Reagan. At the end, that's not going to help them. I mean, at the end of the day, that's not.
I think I saw the
Says
Post
everyone that didn't get it.
I saw the Post endorsement.
Right?
Democrat primaries matter. Tashara Jones, I thought, was very artful in not seeking the endorsement and got a lot of attention for it. If she wins this race, will that be a reason why?
It certainly got us a lot of attention.
Yeah.
We got national attention because of that letter. MoveOn.org endorsed us. Democracy for America endorsed us. A lot of people all over the country have been donating to the campaign because they want to.
Have you seen a fundraising boost from that letter?
We have. It's a lot of small donations. I think our smallest was 50 cents, which we are very grateful for, so thank you.
So if you win this race, give me the one reason why.
I think it's because of Louis Reed's experience, and I think that he is a proven
Is it running
leader.
last time, gives you the base? Is that kind of the...
Oh, absolutely. We've
factor?
already identified about 20 to 25,000 Reed votes that say yes. But of course, you got to have the election, right? So we've already ID'd about 20 to 25,000 votes that have said yes. So we have to see. I'm with the other folks on the panel. We've got to get a great turnout, and I think a great turnout. It's a horse race. I think it's going to be a race to the finish.
Lyda Krewson wins this race. What's the reason why?
Well, the Post-Dispatch called Lyda earnest, competent, and qualified, which I think is a great reason that Lyda will win. She's very honest. She doesn't throw mud. She works with others, even if she disagrees. And I think that the city, given what happened in November, is ready for someone who's just going to roll up their sleeves, get to work, and not make it all about them, but about the people.
In a race that you win, how many people vote, roughly?
I think it's right around 50,000. I think that it's somewhere between 45 and 50,000.
And you win a race with 50,000 votes?
I think that you win a race with 50,000
votes. In a race
votes,
that you win, how many people vote?
I think same number. I think historically, I think you're about 40 to 45,000 votes that are going to come out, and I think that we're going to be right around.
I know you got to say more, right? More people than that vote for you to win, right?
Well, I hope that we can win no matter how many people vote, but I think that those numbers are right. I think that there's going to be more turnout. There are a lot of contested races in wards across the city, so
you need
that's going to drive
50,000 votes. You can win an election when only 50,000 people vote.
I think so.
How many people need to vote?
I'm thinking I guess that it's going to be around 48,000. I don't think we're probably going to have.
Nice.
I don't think we're going to have quite as big of a bump just because of historically.
We're taping this, you know that, right?
Folks who that's my feeling based on what is going on aldermanically, and also just traditionally how many people we lose in a March election. It is a shame that we lose that many people.
Does Trump change that, though? I mean, you asked the questions.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Doesn't that change it? I mean, we have a lot of people.
I think Democrats are more energized.
Yeah, we're very energized. I mean, we were talking about this in the green room before. There are dozens of questionnaires, dozens of forums. In the last mayor's race, what were there, 5, 10? 3 questionnaires? People are awake.
Is it because Hillary Clinton was so bad of a candidate, people didn't care, but they cared about Obama, and now they care to oppose Trump?
I don't think it's.
What is it?
I think it's Trump. I think people are afraid. I think we have a movement for blue cities and red states, and people want to stand up and do something. They realize that if they didn't do something and Trump won, that they need to do something now.
Let's flip this question.
Real quick, I just want to get on. I believe, and I think our campaign believes, that people don't vote against someone. People vote for someone. And I believe that, as a campaign, you put out your plan, you put out your vision, and that's what people want to believe in. I don't think that anybody goes into the or a very small portion of people go into the polling booth and say, I don't like this person, I'm voting against him.
That might be the media's unhidden message about Trump, is there are a lot of folks who voted for Trump, not against Hillary Clinton.
Well, and you have to point out, based on what you said about polling earlier, really, actually, the polls in November were correct as far as the popular vote goes. It's the Electoral College that swung that election, so I think that's something everyone has to remember.
We'll do a fourth grade civics class on how presidents are elected.
No, I was going to say, luckily we don't have the Electoral College to deal with.
Megan, every so often I'll look out the window of my office and I'll see you in Jeff City down on High Street. Whoever wins this election will be probably, outside of Claire McCaskill, the most high-profile Democratic elected official in the state, along with Sly James. It looks like the urban part of the Democrat Party is moving to the left pretty quick. The rest of the state seems to be drifting right. How do you balance that as a Missouri Democrat? Do you give up state politics? How do you try to convince the suburbs to be more liberal?
You have to go back to what I was talking about earlier, which is being able to work with others. We need a mayor who's willing and capable of working with the county executive. We need a mayor who's willing to go to Jefferson City and talk with people that disagree with them and still be civil and still try to find common ground and get things done. As I said earlier, Lyda has a track record of doing that at the Board of Aldermen for 20 years. And so I'm very confident that Lyda will be that person.
Tashara Jones knows Jeff City well. You look at the cities, they're moving further to the left. The suburbs seem to be drifting a little to the right. What do you do as a Missouri Democrat to bridge that?
Well, the answer is in the question. You have to try to bridge it. Tishaura has been a state rep. She was the minority whip of the Democratic Party when she was there in the House. So she has proven leadership and has been able to work across the aisle at that point, still has many friends who are in the legislature. So I think that helps her a lot when we're talking about what St. Louis needs.
Can Louis Reed be part of a team that reaches out and wins over South County, Jefferson County, Franklin County voters that used to vote Democrat in statewide elections and don't anymore?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's been a proven leader. I mean, he's the only one, again, and I keep stressing that, the only one that's ran in not only 1, 2, 3, but 3 citywide races and has won. He has won 3 times citywide. He's
talking about the state, though, now.
Well, even with the state. The reason why I'm saying, because if you start there, you can do it. Of course, it can be duplicated at the state level.
I think there's a part of Antonio French's campaign that's fresh. Does he know something other people might need to know as far as winning Democrat races?
Well, I think what he said, what he does is a couple of things. Number one, he'll sit down with people he disagrees with. We sat down with the St. Louis Police Officers Association and told them flat out, we're not seeking your endorsement, but we're going to sit down and tell you exactly what we believe, and we're going to listen to you. Now, I think from a state level, I think 2 things. I think Antonio is willing to take on a fight. I think that he's willing to take up the mantle for a blue mantle in a red state, but understand that, you know, it's about getting things done. You know, when I went to work for him, I asked him, I said, straight up, why do you want to be mayor? He's like, I know you said watch the language, so I'm going to be careful about it. He's like, I want to get things done, right? And so that's what his whole thing is about. And if he's the highest profile Democrat with Senator McCaskill, I think he'll look at Jeff City, I think he'll look at counties and say, you know what, we need to get things done. Real quick,
can he win without some kind of fundraising boost? Can he win on the budget he has?
We've had a fundraising boost since the Post-Dispatch endorsement. I think that it has been night and day. It's a new campaign.
With a minute left, who won the week?
Who won the week? I'd say the governor. His efforts out there cleaning up the cemetery with the vice president. I think that was an excellent photo op. It made him look
all Missourians had to be proud of the governor.
I was, and you know, I was.
Who won the week?
I'm going to say Jason Kander. He continues to fight for voting rights and keep himself in the news and spotlight.
Interesting. Who won the week?
Dexter Fowler. I'm excited about our new Cardinal, and he's willing to say what he thinks, and I respect that.
I think he needs to win a ring.
A
real ring from a real franchise, not a JV failure franchise. The crown jewel of the National League. To quote Treasurer Schmidt.
I think Gabby Giffords, the former Congresswoman from Arizona, she. You see the Republican town halls, and Louis Gohmert from Texas, who said, I'm not going because I'm unsafe, and she put out a tweet that said, I was shot on a Saturday and my office was open on a Monday.
Fair enough. I have a who won the week. It's more Jeff City style. It was a great debate in the Senate this week. Senator Krause, Senator Silvey debated the Real ID bill. They were both debating pro-liberty. It was an interesting debate about who really has liberty and where do you get it from. And I always shout out to Clinton McDaniel. And we will see you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.